the real Michael Jackson? Why did he want to have this relationship with children? His bodyguard, Matt Fiddes, insists was completely platonic.
There wasn't just young boys, there was girls and boys. If you want to hurt someone the most, as famous as Michael, you go for the jugular. Child abuse allegations. You're never going to recover. We still don't really know how he died. The CCTV footage was missing from the mansion that he died in. Why did he want to hang around with kids and animals? They don't screw him over that. They don't want money from him.
In the battle with Sony, he had been very outspoken against Tommy Mottola, the boss of Sony at the time.
It was worth over $1 billion. He gave that to Sony Music as collateral. He believed Sony Music let the album be a flop and then we'll take the Beatles catalogue, so that's worth a lot more money to us. Michael got investigated for 10 years by the FBI, tapping his phone calls, nothing at all. He got found not guilty in one of the toughest courts in the world. No evidence of anything.
Who was the real Michael Jackson? And why did he want to have this relationship with children? One that his bodyguard, Matt Fiddes, claims and insists was completely platonic. Matt, talk to me about Michael Jackson, the person, the human being. Do you sign up to this idea that because he lost his childhood as a young star who was pushed around by his dad and forced to go on the road all the time, that it was the children that made him feel young again? Is that why he wanted to hang out with kids? Because you know, lots of people say, Matt, why does a guy in their 30s or 40s want to be around young children?
Okay, let me address the never had a childhood bit, because I have an interesting view on this. I got to know all the Jackson brothers, and they were all under extreme limelight from a very young age down. Me and Tito Jackson, rest in peace, great guy, lovely, lovely man, who passed away just in September. We used to talk about this a lot. Bear in mind, there's not many years difference between most of them. You got Marlon Jackson, just a year younger, Tito's a couple of years older, and so on. Now, they've turned out to be okay. If you ask about their childhood, they're fine. And Jermaine, and so on. The difference is that Michael Jackson was a very sensitive soul. He was a different makeup. If you mess with Jermaine or Jackie, you're going to know it. You mess with Tito, you're going to know it. You know, whereas Michael, didn't like confrontation. He was very sensitive. He would watch TV, kids starving in Africa, and he would be crying. He was just different. And yeah, they were all raised up. They shared beds. They didn't have a childhood. I don't believe that was the reason why Michael used to talk about this a lot, and why he created Neverland was another reason, that because he couldn't go out and have fun time and so on. I don't think that's the issue. I just think it's the issue that is a sensitivity. Now, why the children? Well, let's just clear things up. Everyone keeps going on about young boys. Dan, it wasn't just young boys. There was girls and boys. He's got a big family. Got Taj, Tarrell, and TJ. They used to be around there all the time. Tito's sons, and they go on and on. Deals, Jackie Jackson's son, and the nieces and so forth. There's just this narrative of boys. If you want to hurt someone the most, as famous as Michael, you go for the jugular. What's going to hurt him the most? Murder, child abuse allegations. You're never going to recover. Mud will stick. And he was the biggest target. And unfortunately, being the most powerful man in the world, and he owned half of Sony Music Publishing, there's a lot of people want to get their hands on that, and a lot of conspiracies about the way he died and so forth. We still don't really know how he died, right? The CCTV footage was missing from the mansion that he died in. A lot of weird stuff went on, and he was fighting with Sony right to the end. So why did he want to hang around with kids and animals? Let's not forget the animals. He had his own zoo. Because they don't screw him over, Dan. They don't want money from him. They don't want an autograph, a picture, a business deal. Remember, Geordie Chandler's dad, Evan Chandler, first approached Michael with a movie script deal. He wanted to produce a movie. He did a movie called Men in Tights, Robin Hood Men in Tights. Michael turned it down. And then you got all those audio tapes online on YouTube. People should go and check it out. It says, we're going to go through this. I got the biggest badass lawyer out there. We're going to win big time. Michael's not going to know what's hit him. And they all want something from the guy. And that's the difference between me and Michael. I never took any money from Michael. And I'm not saying this to brag, I'm just telling the truth. And you know this, Dan. Time I was 18, I was already a multi-millionaire. That's why it worked with me and him. I helped him out for free because I knew he was getting screwed because his regular security went and his bill was like $150,000, $200,000 per month. Whereas me with the Matt Fiddes martial arts schools, I could help him out for free.
Yeah.
And we were friends for a year first, and then it just developed. Yeah. And whatever he wanted, I helped out, especially up to 2004. Then the Nation of Islam took over because he needed a high level of protection for the trial. Then he went to Bahrain. Then he lived in Southern Ireland, would you believe it, recording an album. Then he went back to Vegas where Bill Whitfield looked after him. And unfortunately, he fell back into the whole American trap. So he trusted kids. He trusted animals. He didn't trust adults. There's always some catch. Yeah. Somebody wants something from him.
I understand that. I also want to ask about Candace Owens and her claims, because you mentioned the battle with Sony, Matt, and Candace believes, and a lot of people do believe, that because Michael Jackson was challenging the music industry and the setup and the structure of the music industry, they wanted to silence him. We know, for example, that he had been very outspoken against Tommy Mottola, the boss of Sony at the time, who was married to Mariah Carey previously. And Michael Jackson was like, this guy is evil. Is Candace Owens right that that played a part in Michael's cancellation?
Sony Music are powerful. We were in London and Michael said one day, I want to hire a double-decker bus, Matt, and we're going to go outside Sony Music and we're going to do a protest. I said, what are you talking about? He said, just hire the bus and go along with it. So we did. And he had all these big banners. We told all the fans. They came with us and we're outside Sony Music. I think at the time it was on Tottenham Court Road. And he was there. He was shouting, terminate Mottola. Tommy Mottola, you're right there, the head of Sony Music. Yes, Mariah Carey did used to call him and say, this was going on, this is going on. They're not promoting your album. And she was married to Tommy Mottola. That was the connection, the head of Sony Music at the time. Michael really believed. I remember being with him in Exeter, not far from here, in a hotel room, and he threw a jacket on the floor. And I said, what's wrong, Mike? He said, I've just lost 5 years of my life working on this album called Invincible, and Sony are refusing to promote it. They won't promote it because when you make an album, this is what Michael told me anyway, okay? And I think it's been fact-checked by Candace as well, and it's true. When you make an album, you have to put collateral up for it. So you'd have to put a house up for it, something of value, because it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to make, especially to Michael Jackson standards where he wants music videos and so on. So Neverland was mortgaged to the hilt. There's no more equity in that. So what he did have was the Beatles catalogue and also Eminem's catalogue and Happy Birthday song and all that. He owns all of that. And it was worth over $1 billion. So he gave that to Sony Music as collateral. What he believed is Sony Music tried to outsmart him, thinking, hang on a minute, let's not promote Michael's album. Let him spend a couple $100 million. Let the album be a flop. And then we'll take the Beatles catalogue because that's worth a lot more money to us. And Michael went on stage and told all the fans this. We turned up and announced at a fan party in Leicester Square called Killer Thriller. And he told all the fans what Mariah Carey told him, what he believed happened, and that Michael outsmarted them, but it was too late by that point. Now, Invincible wasn't a flop, but it was nothing compared to Michael Jackson's standards. I used to say to Mike, the problem you've got is you're competing with yourself. He was trying to beat Thriller. Music moved to digital age by then. He was working with will.i.am and Akon to go on to downloads, but he had to be pushed. He didn't want to. He really wanted to beat Thriller. But Michael believes Sony Music were after him. So what Candace is saying is true. It's true. There is that question above. You know, there was threats coming in. There was aggression. Michael said some stuff maybe he shouldn't have. He called Tommy Mottola devilish. But he's hearing firsthand from Tommy Mottola's wife or ex-wife at the time of what's been said and what's been done. So he had no reason to doubt it. So yeah, when you're the most powerful man in the world, they come after you, Dan. And we've seen many, many examples of this. I mean, I remember talking to you about when you were interviewing someone famous. It's like your peak of your career on a certain TV show and you got cancelled. And you see with the likes of Andrew Tate and so forth and what goes on there. The more powerful you get, they come after you because Michael's power was unbelievable. The music catalogue he had. Now, guess who owns it now? Sony. They bought it off the estate.
And making a lot of money from it. And actually, I want to talk, Matt, about the movie, the big movie, because There's a huge amount of controversy surrounding this movie. It's been delayed. This is Michael Jackson's life story. It's going to feature his music, but the consternation is over how much do the producers include these allegations. What do you think about that? Should it be part of the story?
You can't whitewash Michael's life without the controversy he's had to live under. It should be part of the story. I believe it is part of the story, Dan. There is a little bit of a legal issue, which they've had to tweak the movie because a contract was signed where they can be seen to dramatize the 1993 allegations. However, this will be the Michael Jackson estate are working with the people that made the Bohemian Rhapsody, the Queen movie. So this is going to be massive, probably the biggest movie of all time. $200 million budget. They reckon it's going to be unbelievable. And you can look how big the other ones have been. And I know people have seen glimpses of it. Michael's nephew, Jafar, Jermaine Jackson's son, Michael's older brother, is playing Michael, and he does an incredible job with the whole thing. When this comes out, it's just going to be an explosion in all the movies all around the world. And I think the nonsense will finally fall away. They have to address the allegations. They got no choice. The media attacks, the witch hunt. And I hope they do it justice, they do it in the right way. But at the same time, as I kept on going back from the beginning of the show, it's all a load of nonsense. If you want to hurt Michael Jackson, go after him with murder or child abuse. You want to hurt Andrew Tate, go after him with sex trafficking. You know, you see with P. Diddy right now. I mean, I don't know P. Diddy, but I went to a P. Diddy party with Michael Jackson. We were there for about 10 minutes. He went there because he heard that Beyonce was there in Vegas. He whispered in P. Diddy's ear saying, "Is Beyonce here?" And P. Diddy said, "Oh, she just left." And we went again. There was none of this going on. I'm not saying it didn't happen after a few hours later, but as far as we were concerned, it's very different. Another room I want to clear up too, this Epstein list.
Oh,
where
yes.
Michael Jackson's name appears on it. Let me tell you what happened there. One of Michael's best friends was Barry Gibb, the Bee Gees. He lived in Palm Beach in Miami. And they were recording an album together. They actually did one together. I'm not sure if it's wrapped up in legals. I think a single came out, was leaked. And he spent a lot of time at Barry Gibb's house. He loved it down there. So he organized for an estate agent, a real estate agent, to line up on Palm Beach billionaire properties to go and view one by one. I was with him, Dan. And we didn't know who the hell the owners were. That's all confidential. Bear in mind, this guy this is 2003. Back then, this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, never knew who the hell he was. He never had the publicity. So we viewed all these houses. It so happened, it turned out, one of them was Jeffrey Epstein's house. He was selling his house. That's the connection. That is it. That's all it is. Michael didn't even know. He would have waved to them, moved to the next house, waved to them, moved to the next. But mainstream media don't want to run with that. Yeah, there you go. They're recording. That's at Barry Gibb's house in Miami.
Fascinating. Gosh,
he wanted to live on Palm Beach.
I want to hear that album. Okay, that's very good. You've cleared that up. Then, Matt, I want to do something else because Piers Morgan hosted one of these big, furious debates about the whole thing this week with the director of Leaving Neverland, Surviving Michael Jackson. Can we watch along a couple of these key moments and then I'll get you to respond afterwards, Matt? But first, the reason you're watching this show is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to trust mainstream media or the so-called fact checkers who claim to determine which facts are true. And there's good reason for that, given the debate over free speech, the controversy surrounding Brexit, and how Trump and other politicians challenging the status quo are portrayed. But I have the solution for you. It's called Ground News, and it's the best way to stay informed and cut through media bias and narratives so you can get the facts for yourself. Go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out. But I want to show you this incredible website in action before I reveal a massive discount. So let's look at this game-changing speech by US Vice President J.D. Vance. It's actually been my favorite story over the past few weeks. He gave it to the Munich Security Conference. He tore into the European governments. He tore into the UK away, for taking free speech away. And it was beautiful. You can see on Ground News quite clearly that 361 sources covered this story. It then instantly shows how the story is covered by the media, but broken down by whether they lean to the left or the right. This is called the bias distribution service. If you scroll down, you can see every article about this topic broken down by the political position and ownership of the publication. We can see for ourselves quite clearly Newsmax and GB News gave fair and accurate coverage, focusing on how Vance finally had the guts to point out uncomfortable truths to European leaders. By stark contrast, the left-wing HuffPost claimed the speech left all of Europe aghast, while The Independent missed the lead altogether to focus on Vance's joke about Elon Musk, because they will do anything to slag off Elon Musk. What's more, Ground News gets to know you personally, providing you with the news stories you're interested in while also analysing your own biases. Now, my favourite feature is called the Blind Spot feed. This services upwards of 20 stories daily that you might not be hearing about because of the corruption of the mainstream media. So look, I know you love the news, but you don't trust the legacy media. Ground News gives you the tools to understand the truth about what is really going on in the world. It is the only way I read the news, allowing you to see through media bias and manipulative narratives. It's so good. So go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out. Subscribe through my link today for 40% off the Vantage plan, which is what I use for unlimited access. Ground News is subscriber funded, supporting my sponsors, also supports my work, and for less than a Netflix subscription, you can get all the world's news in one place and think for yourself. This has been a game changer for a news junkie like me. So let me repeat the address: ground.news/outspoken. Or if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, you can use the QR code on screen right now or click on the link in the description box below. But now, back to the show.
And nor, as it turned out, would I allow my 13-year-old son, as Geordie Chandler did at the time, to spend 30 consecutive nights in the same bed as Michael Jackson, right? And then later, of course, Geordie Chandler...
I agree. That is shocking. It's immoral and it's unacceptable.
Yeah, but that's my point. My point is...
Michael thinking it was a sleepover party.
Okay, let me come back to...
immoral.
I'll come back to Dan on that. I mean, that one fact alone is just so weird and creepy and unusual that, you know, who knows what went on in that room, except that every night for over a month, Michael Jackson is going to bed in the same bed with a 13-year-old boy. Now, I think it's reprehensible the parents let him. Completely agree with Rabbi Shmuley about that. I would never have ever allowed that. It's reprehensible. They took a massive payoff to shut up about it. We'll never know what was said because there was no admission of guilt on Jackson's part, obviously, as part of the settlement. And in America, you know, many big stars settle stuff all the time when they're not guilty of crime. So that you can't read anything into that. But just on the facts alone, Dan, I would say that there'll be a lot of people who say that alone, that one piece of information, does suggest that there was something very weird about this.
Well, that's the question I always ask of you know, the fans and the people who knew Jackson well. What was he doing in bed with these little boys?
Yeah.
You know, Wade was 7 and James was 10 when, you know, they alleged the abuse started. What was he doing with these little boys alone in bed? If you're nostalgic for your childhood and you want to be in the presence of children, why not play with the kids all day, you know, late at night, invite their mum into the bedroom, watch a movie, and then when it's time to sleep, let the child leave with his mother or father.
Matt, how do you respond to that?
Probably the only sensible thing I've seen Dan Reed actually say. Now, I'm a dad, and I certainly wouldn't let a grown man sleep in my children's bed. I wouldn't let a child who I didn't know the same age sleep in my children's bed, or a family member. But what you have to understand here, we'll never know that. What I can tell you, though, is my friend was not a child molester. And the other thing I can tell you, too, just a few months later, you've got the threats, the audio recordings, the detectives. Could it have been a stitch-up? Could they have invited Michael to stay there every night and encourage it all the time so they can bring this lawsuit against Michael? Not a criminal case, but a lawsuit, which apparently settled for $20 million. I can't defend it. All I can say is, what the hell were the parents thinking? What are they doing in the first place? They're either looking for money or looking for trouble, or they should not be parents. They should have had their children taken off them, because it's not right. Like, completely not right. Now, when we talk about Neverland and sleeping in the bed there where Dan Reed's talking about, that's a different situation. Neverland, Michael Jackson's bedroom is the size of a mansion. It's 2 floors, several bathrooms, 2 double beds, fireplace, arcade. It was very normal to be in there, watch TV with Michael, eat popcorn. The chef will come in with KFC and so on, and you fall asleep. You just fall asleep. Macaulay Culkin's cleared this up, and Kieran Culkin, and Brett Barnes, and lots of other people, and Tito's sons. That was normal. It's like a house. People think Neverland's Michael's house. When Michael's walking around, he's got over 150 security staff guarding him. He's followed everywhere. People are parachuting in thinking, oh, I don't know where I am. They knew where they were. They're trying to meet Michael Jackson. He had to run to his panic room, which people say is a sex abuse room. Nonsense. It's a panic room. He had to use it often. People always say there's a corridor with a map where an alarm will go off when someone's near his bedroom. Yes, it's true. And if I was Michael Jackson, Dan, I would want one of them as well. And I know some other big stars, and I won't name them, but they're Hollywood stars who've got exactly the same security device. When someone gets near their bedroom, alarms go off. They bolt the door. They make sure they're okay. They go into the panic room until they hear from the head of security that everything's okay. That's standard security. That was put in to protect Michael. It's got nothing to do with him being caught out with kids. So his only private place in Neverland is his bedroom quarters. That's it. The rest of it is people staring at him, staff, security guards, CCTV. That's the only place he can chill out. But it's the size of a house, But again, it's unless you've lived it and you know Michael, you'll never understand it. That man wouldn't hurt a fly, let alone a kid. That guy was the kindest, softest man ever. My children spent many hours with him. He used to take them shopping at Hamley, shut it down for them. No concern whatsoever, because I had seen him with women. I used to sneak women into his room, Dan. He wanted you to believe this narrative. When we would walk out the corridor, go outside the hotel, he'd say, Matt, remember, we got to keep my life the greatest mystery on earth. If I'm not interested, people will not be interested in me no more. Hence the face mask, the shades, the makeup. He did it. He learned this from Howard Hughes. He studied the greats. He knew he had to be mysterious, and we all had to create that environment for him. Now it's backfired on him because he can't talk about it. It's social media age. The media used to love it. They used to love it when they put, Dan, you're editor of the newspapers. He would have made the companies you work for billions of dollars. It was a win-win relationship.
Totally.
And like the paparazzi, Mr. Paparazzi, I don't remember him, Darren Lyons.
Oh, I do.
Great guy. He'll tell you how it is, man. Michael and the others will be on the phone. Hey, there's no paparazzi outside my hotel. Sort that out. It's not a thing no more.
Oh, God, I love it. I love the insight. Can I show you one more clip from the Piers Morgan interview?
Sure.
I was never in the room when any of this alleged stuff was going on. I do think Michael Jackson was a weird guy. I do think it's very weird for a guy in his 30s, 40s, 50s to share a bed with young boys who are not his children, right? I think that's creepy. I think it's weird. It's like it's not something most people would find acceptable behaviour. But does it make him a paedophile? And Dan, I guess the question I would say to you is, you're back with another film. It's 6 years after the first one. Have you really advanced the debate on whether Michael Jackson was guilty of paedophilia, or is it a rehash of these two guys who are making these claims but actually haven't got any more evidence?
Well, it's neither. So this new documentary is about lawsuits that were filed way before I met Wade and James, and the lawsuits are against Jackson's companies. So it's really saying to the people who work for Jackson, you enabled this, you let him get away with what he did to us as children, and now we're going to hold you to account. We're going to try and change the law, and we're going to try and make this sort of thing unacceptable in the entertainment industry in California, and that's what they're trying to do.
But are you 100% certain that Jackson was guilty? Are you 95% certain? How would you categorise, after you've immersed yourself in this for so long, how would you categorise your own belief about what he may or may not have done?
I'm 100% certain. I mean, I've and you can see in the new film, there's interviews with LAPD detectives, there's interviews with Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department detective who investigated Jackson. They were all convinced that he was a pedophile, that he liked to have sex with children. So, I've got to know Wade and James also, I'd be naturally suspicious. I don't want to stake my reputation on believing two people who are lying to me.
They had both, just to be clear for viewers who don't follow, they had both sworn under oath at one of Jackson's cases involving the child abuse. They both swore under oath he hadn't abused them. Then later in their lives, they reversed that and said he had. I mean, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people have been very skeptical about their testimony.
But that's the story of Leaving Neverland. I mean, Wade Robson was defense witness number one in the 2005 criminal trial. And he's probably one of the main reasons why Jackson walked free out of that court, you know? He was an amazing witness. And the story of why he's now saying something different, that's the story of Leaving Neverland.
So 100%, he says, Matt, 100% certain. Your response?
Well, anyone who looks like an egg concerns me anyway. But with all respect to Dan Reed, where's the facts? Where's the evidence? You can't just go, imagine if someone made a documentary about him right now with no facts, what it will do to his family. I don't know if he's got children or his children and so forth. It would be devastating for him. You've been under that scrutiny, Dan. He's got to understand him. Michael's got 3 children. He's got brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, have all been affected by this. And just for what? For viewings? For eyeballs? How could he be 100%? He said he talked to the detectives. And they said that they're 100% certain. On what? Michael got investigated for 10 years by the FBI. We only found that out in 2005. 10 years, tapping his phone calls, watching everything, speaking to people, nothing at all. Then he got found not guilty in one of the toughest courts in the world with a district attorney who was out to get him. And this guy saying that there's detectives that believe it, there was no evidence of anything. All they recovered from Neverland was heterosexual porn magazines, which believed that showed that he was into women, and there was nothing else. It was just complete and utter nonsense. So again, is this how we're going with mainstream media, that we're that desperate that we got to make programs like this about people and ruin their lives and ruin their families? I mean, it's just despicable. I got invited to do Piers' show the other night, and I didn't do it respectively because I know me and you, we can talk. I don't want to be screaming over other panelists. And that's exactly what happened. In fact, I thought Piers was quite fair to Michael. I don't think Piers believes it at all. And in his 2019 interview, he went after Dan Reed, and he had Taj Jackson on the next day, and he gave Taj a platform. And Piers was like, I'm sorry, but they're going after money, because in Leaving Neverland, the first show, the 4 hours, and if it takes you 4 hours to convince someone's a paedophile, it's very wrong, Dan, as it is. But in that 4-hour hit piece, they didn't mention once that Wade and James were suing the Michael Jackson estate for hundreds of millions of dollars. I think if they did, a lot of people would have switched channel for what a load of nonsense. They skipped that. They addressed it in last night's episode. But again, like I said, they keep saying it's not about the money. Go and sue for £1. You can have the same result, clear your name, have your day in court like Wade Robson keeps saying, and prove it. You don't have to sue the estate for hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's getting outrageous and ridiculous. And it's about time this all stopped and Michael's left to rest in peace. Because he's an easy target. He's the biggest star in the world. And when the movie comes out, let me tell you my theory on this, Dan, too.
Yes.
So you mentioned that the movie was delayed to October. It's October the 3rd. It was due out now. What a coincidence. Have we ever heard of the concept of newsjacking? Where if that documentary last night coincided with that movie being in all the cinemas, people will be absorbing the Michael Jackson mania that's going to be happening. I think Dan Reed planned this to come out to coincide with the release of the biopic, Michael, and that's got pushed back and he couldn't move it. And he's left out there in the lurch. He actually said on a TV show yesterday morning, live TV, on Lorraine Kelly's show, that this will probably get blown away, my little documentary, by this movie in Hollywood, because Hollywood is powerful. I believe he knew that, was trying to line them up together, and then he would have got millions of views all around the world. And people would have bought this document and bought into it as another side. Instead now he's up against a $200 million massive movie that will have to be fact-checked. It'll have to go through, the legals and so forth, because there's lots of things. He's still the biggest star in the world. And this documentary will be forgotten about. Michael's music will live forever. Michael's generosity to charities will live forever. The people who know him, his amazing fans around the world, will always have his back. Because if you got to know the real man, Dan, I wish I knew you back then. because I would have took you to his hotel suite, and you would have known within 10 minutes, wow, this guy's not what you thought he was, you know? And yeah.
Well, look, I love your passion. I love that we've been able to have a proper deconstruction of this story. And as you know, you've been a big part of me getting to a different place.
Before we end here, I know it's your show, but I can't, for the fan state, the Michael Jackson state, I need to ask you, do you eat your words back? You had quite a vicious attack on Lorraine Kelly show 2019.
Yes.
Do you feel you made a mistake on
how
I
do.
Fans want me to ask you.
I do actually, and I spoke about this with Megyn Kelly. I don't know if you remember, on my GB News show, because, and look, a lot of people will say, "Oh well, all well and good, you saying it now that I've come for you." But the thing is, Matt, it's only actually when you understand how a witch hunt can work and the depraved levels that people go to lie about people in the public eye, to either destroy reputations or make money. I think it was only when I saw that up close that I actually really understood. And so, absolutely, I apologize.
You believe Michael Jackson was innocent now?
Well, look, I don't think anyone knows if they were in that room, but, and this is the big but, he was found innocent in a court of law. And what I am sick of, and what I hate, the fact that I was part of a previous movement which didn't believe in the sanctity of that process. Do you see what I mean? We have to.
Pressures on you.
Well, we have to live in a society where we are all innocent until proven guilty. And he went through that trial, and I believe I should have respected that process. And as I say, sometimes you have to allow people to experience something, to go through something, to properly understand it. And you can say in some ways, I'm a poacher turned gamekeeper. Do you know what I mean? I was a tabloid newspaper editor. What did tabloid newspapers want to do? Reveal big stories about people. Sometimes, unfortunately, Matt, what that means, that hunt for the story, means that you're more likely to believe an accuser. And note, I will forever now refer to these people as accusers until they are proven to be correct in a court of law. So, look, it's not that I feel that I can declare anything, but what I can do is respect the law, respect the process, and respect the court case where Michael Jackson was proven innocent. And obviously, I have regrets, just like I have regrets about the way that I was involved in the Johnny Depp case as well. And for me, one of the things about going independent is actually to be able to have these honest conversations, to admit when I got things wrong, but also to explain about why some of these things do end up happening. And I think certainly we were in an era, weren't we, of believe all victims. All victims should just be believed, Matt. That's where we were all at. Do you remember after the Harvey Weinstein case, the Me Too movement? And unfortunately, that was quite easy for me to go along with that when I was working in the mainstream media. Okay, fine, just all victims are to be believed. But remember, it wasn't just the media saying it was Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, who was then the head of the CPS, saying it. So look, you're right to question me. You've questioned me about this before on stage and actually played it to me. And look, I'm a different person now after what I went through. And I am certainly much more open-minded, much more wise to the mainstream media, much more understanding about what a media witch hunt is. And so I hope that explains.
I think trial by media needs to stop, Dan.
It does.
No one should be named until they're found guilty. There should be a rule there.
Totally.
And when you're guilty, when you're not guilty, you're not guilty. That's the end of it. And you should not be able to defame a dead person. I mean, it's just wrong. But
Totally.
Thanks for having your platform. It's been amazing. And just to clear out, I said to Dan, there's no questions. We've not planned anything.
Yes.
He's come at me with very difficult subjects.
Correct.
We've handled it, and I'm glad
Totally. Nothing was off limits, as you know, and I did want to put both sides, and I think we've done that.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.